See, this is how bad it is.
That's because I'm sitting here.
No.
My nervousness is infection.
No, it's all right.
He's got enough of his own.
I haven't had enough alcohol. That's the problem. All right. Hey, Internet. I'm Chaz.
And I'm Dan. Welcome to Wine is Serious Business, episode 133. This is one we've been looking forward to doing for a long time. We've got Barnaby Tuttle here from the Teutonic Wine Company. Big fan of his wines. He's been a friend of mine for a while. We hung out in Germany. He introduced me to some great people. One of my favorite people to talk to about wine, and really excited, to share some of his thoughts and some of his wine with you guys. Anything you want to say by way of introduction?
Well, just honored to be in your program. I love what you guys are doing. A little bit camera shy, so forgive me if I stutter or do anything goofy.
No worries.
I do that all the time. You have nothing to worry about, trust me. There's a lot of cuts that have to be made off my bad vocabulary, so...
There's that too.
Yeah.
And Barnaby pulled out a special selection of 3 bottles for us to do on the show tonight. Kind of some unique insight and a little bit of a preview. So why don't you tell us what we've got here?
Well, this is a vertical of our Alsea vineyard. This is the vineyard that we planted back in 2005. To my knowledge, it's the only coastal Pinot Noir in Oregon. We have a little bit of a glitch with the name here, so please imagine it says Teutonic and not Honig Schlucht. So 2008, 9, and 10.
So cool vertical of a very unique vineyard in Oregon, and that's one of the many exciting things about their story, right? You decided you wanted to get into wine, you looked for a vineyard site, and you didn't end up in the middle of the Willamette Valley. We'll talk more about the vineyard in specific after the first wine. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with 2008.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
And these are all Pinot Noir. I don't think we've said that yet. But,
no, right.
But
despite the...
really excited to try these. I got a chance to try, or we actually had on the show, the 2010 Laurel Vineyard Pinot Noir, and just love how different it is. Like, it's something completely outside the norm, and well done in that, right? Like,
yeah.
And you don't see that enough, I think, in the Willamette Valley. So, getting to taste these wines, I'm really excited. So
cool. Coastal Pinot. More dark fruits are coming through on the nose, I think, than the younger Pinots I have from you, which is interesting to see that evolution.
And there's like a very dark component to the nose here.
Plums and blackberries.
It's like a black licorice thing going on, though.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like strong.
And I also get a little sort of a forest floor, kind of mushroomy thing I like quite a bit.
Yeah, there is a definite mushroomy thing on there.
And I guess, when, I don't really make wine. I get fruit from cold places and let nature sort itself out. But I'm so much more interested in these secondary flavors, the earth flavors, the mineral.
There are a lot of earth flavors, yes.
Kind of also sort of a eucalyptusy kind of
Which I like.
Aromatic.
The plum flavors really settle down on the palate right away. And get a little bit of dry character, like the age of the wine starts to show where the fruit has a little bit of dry character on it. The tannins settling in on the back are pretty gentle.
But not just plums, I mean there's like a dark cherry thing going on here. Like sort of like older fruit, not dried, but oh, wow. Completely, another wine where it's like completely outside the norm, right? Like this 2008, you very concentrated, like jammy wines. From time to time, some people did a very good job, but like, man, this is completely dark and like almost mysterious. It's very strange, in a good way. So,
and I think texturally there's something interesting where the tannins like settle more in the center of the palate than on the back. I think a lot of times you get things drying out kind of back in the teeth or way on the back of your tongue, and here the structure and the finish is a little more in the center. And that plum fruit lingers a little bit on the finish too.
Yeah, this is really exciting for me to see how this is aged. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things about, when this whole process is you don't know. This is so much bigger than all of us. And you put the plants in the ground and they grow and you make the wine. And now for the first time, I think I kind of know what this is. And I don't drink the wines we make so much. I mean, I drink them periodically, but I'm not too close to them. I mean, usually I'm just drinking Mosel Riesling, and once in a while for an event like this, I'll pull a bottle out, but otherwise it's just
taste it in the winery, and then once it's out the door, it's out the door.
Yeah, I'll taste them once in a while, but like, I haven't had this wine in over a year.
What was this like when it first went on sale? Do you have any memories of that?
It was a lot lighter.
Sure. Oh,
Color-wise,
that's fascinating.
flavor-wise. It definitely wasn't all this mushroom, foresty, dark-colored fruit. It wasn't there. It was. I would say that it was. I don't want to use the word mainstream,
Okay.
but it was much more kind of what I think your expectations would be. Only lighter because it's from a really cold vineyard.
Sure. And was this amongst your first few releases too, or had you released some of the white wines before?
Oh no, the white wines came in the '09 vintage. This was the second wine we released. This was, I think, picked. Was it the week before or the week after Borgo Pass? I can't remember, but Borgo Pass Pinot Meunier is our first wine we released, and this is number 2.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it. That's cool stuff.
Oh, my pleasure.
Despite all the dark characteristics that we talked about this wine, like the mushrooms and the dark fruit flavors, like the acidity keeps things completely fresh, and it's so seemingly so light. You know, it's not like overly concentrated. It's very, very dark, but it's just like gentle and light, and I like the way the finish winds up. It's nice. It's very nice.
Yeah. It lingers nice. And that's definitely something, like, if you see their label on a bottle of wine, you will not be left wanting acid. Like, you can
true.
count on that. Like, always, like, plenty of acidity, and I'm picky about that, but it's like good quality acidity too. It feels good on the palate. It's got that liveliness that, keeps wines exciting. It really hits home for me.
Take it you like a lot of acidity in your wines.
Yes, I love. Yeah, I try to make the wines that I like.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I would hope so. Yeah.
fruit from cold vineyards, good fresh acidity. I come to this from a restaurant background, and I guess I had this kind of crazy idea. It's like, oh, we'll make wines for the kitchen. Like, we'll sell the wines to these restaurants by selling them to the chefs. Because
Nice.
I don't want the wine to step on the food. I want my wine to be like MSG. It's something that just makes food taste better.
Do you think which of your lineup, right, of your current releases, or over the course of a year, which of your wine delivers to that goal best? Do you think?
Ooh, that's hard to say. I hope that hopefully they all do. I would say probably the Rieslings are the most intensely acidic wines, but I would hope they all do. It's a very, very tough question for me.
It is, yeah.
And the beauty is, once again, it's beyond me. I don't really do anything as a winemaker. I get fruit from cold vineyards. Hopefully the fruit hangs for a long time. This, like our 2011 Pinot from Alsea was picked well into November. And the wine happens by itself. I just clean things all the time. And, I just hope it works out. And then I'm fascinated and intrigued by the results.
And so are we. So we
Yeah.
continue to do this. Yeah.
So we're going to move on to a rinse here. This is 2009. So this was known as a warm year, but you're talking about using cool sites, right? This is out on the coast. Was this still a later ripening vintage for you? Certainly not like 2011, but just a little rinse here.
I would say it was picked, I think the last week of October, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So this is a rinse.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to be a fun boy tonight.
You're already home. It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. So another thing Dan was talking about, this sort of a hot year, but I saw the alcohol on the label, 11.5. Like is that just something that's characteristic of the site?
My goal, and I can't wait to release the 2011s because I think probably the hottest Pinot I have is 12, but most of them are like 10 and a half.
Sure.
So it's a crazy experiment, not capitalizing, letting it happen. If people buy it, I'll keep doing it. We'll
Sure.
see.
Make what the vineyard gives you, right?
It worked out with the Laurel Vineyard one in 2010. I think it was like 10.5 or something like that. It was awesome.
Thank you.
It was like juicy. It just literally goes down like juice.
So,
Not stepping on the food at all, right?
Yeah.
So Anyway.
food wines. So you notice this wine's a little lighter, even though it was sort of a riper year. I think there's a couple things. One is it's a little bit younger, but I sort of got confidence in my style. I kind of started doing shorter skin contacts because once again, these red wines are kind of more like white wines in drag. I want them, they look like red wines, but I love the attributions of these wines that are more like whites. The mineral, the acidity, the agility, and I didn't want the fruit to cover up all those sort of secondary and tertiary flavors.
That's an interesting, yeah.
Do you feel like your
Pretty far
wines
away
have less tannic structure in them? That's a less important part of the wine you make compared to other people in the valley?
I don't know. I mean, I think this wine is balanced. I mean, I don't think I lose too much tannin by doing that.
Sure. I think I'm curious. And
Maybe
yeah.
if you keep it on the skins longer, the tannins start to round out and soften again.
Okay.
But I could be mistaken about that. That shows how much I know about winemaking.
Well, I don't know how it plays out either, just when you're talking about short skin contact. When I hear people talk about long skin contact, I associate that with a lot more, robust wines, and, maybe even some like longer contact with the stems and things like that. But, I'm not big into, I like the big acidity, but I'm not so big into the big heavy tannins. So I'm like, oh, maybe that's one of the things that works in my direction when I taste
Elegant tannins, I think is the
There we
word
go.
I'm looking for. And and a couple of things, I really want the wines to reflect the vineyard. So we actually, a couple of weeks before harvest, we'll go down there and pick several buckets and press it, and then let it start fermenting by itself. Because, I want it to be the yeast from the vineyard that's fermenting the wine, because I think the biology is part of the terroir. And once again, is it better or worse? I don't know. What matters is it's authentic, and it's the best I can do to replicate the place. And then, we're not doing cold soaks. I just, once I just stem it right with the fermenter and pitch the yeast right then. I want to get that stuff, fermenting quickly in the barrel, and then there's always a neutral oak.
And that's the yeast from the barrel that you harvested before?
No, we clean the barrels.
Oh,
we
gotcha.
sterilized, but no. The yeast is harvested from the vineyard, so even all our
So
estates.
that's what I meant.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the
work
fruit that you
You're
had.
talking about the fruit that you fermented early, right?
Oh yeah, it's from the same vineyard.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right, which is not all that common, right? So you hear people talk about indigenous yeast or native yeast. That's what it's talking about. He lets it grow before he brings the whole harvest in, and some people do that and some people don't, right? Well, the other way you can buy yeast from a lab, right, and throw it in.
That will impart
Done.
flavor on your wine if so needed, right? So.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of interesting discussions about how the people who do native fermentation, like that really is an element of terroir, right? Because you're getting strains of yeast associated with that specific place.
And I can't imagine that you get one yeast isolate. I mean, I don't know, but I'm guessing between the bacteria and the yeast in here, there are probably 20 things like we're plugging away, if not more, making this. And so I have a question for you guys.
Sweet.
Is there a continuity? Can you tell this is the same vineyard?
I haven't even tasted it yet. I've been running my mouth too much.
You're working, and I'm just sitting here drinking.
To be completely honest, blind, I would not be able to pick this out of the same vineyard.
Okay.
But I am also one that is horrible at, I'm bad at picking out places. During one of our last shows, Dan probably cut it out, but I think I called Dundee Hills, Eola Amity, and
No, I think I left that in.
You left it in, yeah.
We both look like dummies.
Yeah, we look like total
dummies,
dummies. Yeah, no, so I'm bad at those sort of things. But the 08 is showing so much, honestly, like so much more age than this. This feels lighter and more gentle, and like I would pick this out as like 2010, right? Based on just the ease and the gentleness of the wine overall. Whereas I would probably say something like 05 or something on the 08. I mean, I don't even know, just because of how dark and how the flavors of it.
And it's a little bit of that dried fruit, which I'm not getting on this at all. This still has kind of like a feeling of freshness to it, and I'm going to say more like to the blackberries. It isn't like the dark plums either, which when I was tasting this was something that stood out as something that I don't taste that often in Oregon Pinot, and there isn't like a marker like that on this one for me that would cue me off that it was the same.
This is just drinking beautifully.
Almost a little waxy.
I like this a lot.
And it is, totally, because it has kind of that roundness, right, to the fruit, both on the palate and on the nose.
Uh-oh, might be a little induced terroir.
Wow. Yeah, what is this? This is a good story.
Beeswax. We have an apiary in the vineyard, and we'll have very soon single vineyard honey.
Wow. Pretty awesome. And right, you see wax caps a lot, but this is like when you see these clear wax caps from Teutonic Wine Company, it's beeswax from the vineyard.
And this is bottle 130 of 290.
Small production.
Very small production.
And another interesting thing, when we made the first vintage from this vineyard, we poured it for some people, you know, farmers that live in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really wine country. And we poured it for them, and they're like, wow, we don't know so much about wine, but we have to be honest, we don't like it so much because it tastes like our well water.
Oh.
Because it's bell pine soil, there's a tremendous amount of iron, and I kind of took that as like instead of a backhanded compliment, I took it as a backhanded insult, and I was like, thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, and talk about representing the place, right? There is a little bit of oak on this? Yes,
Nope.
or absolutely
Neutral.
none? Wow.
I think all our barrels are like minimum 5 fill.
Okay, I mean, so there's like an element of richness on the mid palate that
Yeah.
works really well with the acidity in the fruit that I would have attributed to a barrel, but
You know,
Help me out.
it could be putting such high acid wines in the barrels, you know, leach out a little bit more oak than they would, but that's a speculation because people will say, oh, nice, like, touch of oak, I like it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't know where you're getting that, yeah.
well, it certainly could be, you know, me just as an amateur taster, right? Like when I taste that richness, often it's from oak, but
But I know what you mean. I taste
Yeah.
it too. I taste the sweetness, and there's a hint of toast. And
okay.
you've been to my winery. There's like the oldest barrels in the world.
Yeah, it's true. Like I you know, I was thinking, like, man, and I never hear you talk about like, oh yeah, we put a bunch of oak on this. You know, that never happens, right?
No.
So,
This is really nice.
mm-hmm.
Like I love how I'm really bad at using the word elegant in wines, but like just the approach of the fruit here is fantastic. I love how just like it's got a juicy characteristic, a rich characteristic, and sort of a fresh characteristic all in one. And the acidity on it, I've said it on the show multiple times. I have a hard time with acidity. This acidity is it's strong, but it's gentle in its approach, right? It's not like overwhelming, which happens way too often in wines, and this is just.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this is good.
And I love how the fruit and the minerality run out for a long time on the finish. Like I had my sip quite a few seconds ago, and I'm still getting feelings of fruit on right in the center of my palate still. It's delicious.
I can kill a bottle of this real fast.
Yeah, really.
It's like it's one of those ones where it's just like it's like it drinks seriously juicy, just and not juicy in the sense of like bad. I mean, this is just easy to drink, easy to put down.
So we were having a great discussion. Well, we had a number of great discussions before we started filming tonight, but we're at Barnaby's house. And he's got a bunch of vines growing around. He says like this is growing just like it is out in the vineyard, all grass and native plants between the vines. It's not you drive out through vineyards. You see a lot of times like big clear cut dirt swaths. Sometimes all the way across, like just the vines. That's all that's growing in it. What inspired you to let everything grow?
Well, I guess several things. One is I didn't want to use herbicide, and I have some misgivings about disking or tilling the soil. And then I guess lastly, soil conservation. Just pushing the roots deeper, and then this idea of, how do I explain? I'm so glad I'm on camera right now.
No, you see,
okay.
like that is gone. You'll never even know.
Okay,
that
but you know what? You get to leave it because this is who I really
Okay,
am. Just
all
like the wines.
Good deal.
It's raw, it's reality.
Good
I'm
deal.
shy. No, I think that, one of the ways that the grapes pull up the flavor of the soil, the minerals, the grapes don't have the apparatus to pull minerals. It's not like there's little drills, there's all like things at the roots. And I want to say I read a study from some enology school, I forgot which one it was, but they were saying that the terroirs are real. This is obviously outmoded, they're not even perpetuating this.
Sure.
But I think when they were doing these samples, like the soils were sterilized or something, I'm not positive. But my belief is the microbiology, it has the enzymes, and it can metabolize the minerals and the nutrients and change it into a form that's soluble and available to the plant. So my goal is to increase the microbial load. And I guess secondly, this idea of terroir, how far do you want to push it? I want to restore that clearing where the vineyard is to the most primeval possible existence. And so, we've spent a lot of effort reintroducing indigenous ground covers, and some that are not. Some that are, healthy for the soil, they retain nutrients and minerals, and that way I mow it, and boom, I put down a healthy layer of mulch. And by the way, this wine is grown in what would be called a rainforest. The moss is this thick on the trees.
Wow. Sounds like a lot of work to mow it too.
Oh, and I try only to mow it 3 times a year. But the beauty is all that vegetation is pulling up the water and keeping my grapes from getting root rot. And then it gets into the dry season, boom, I mow it and I've got a big layer of mulch. And it just seems like the right thing to do. And I obviously am not inventing anything. Human beings have been making wine since we've been drawing in caves. I mean, this is kind of what people like to do. But I thought, I had this idea, and I thought, it's maybe, it seemed like it made sense, and and I started doing it. And then I'm in the Mosel, and I meet these producers I really like, and they're already doing it. They're like, one of the guys, Rash, they were calling him Jungle Andy because it looked so overgrown and chaotic in his vineyard. But I love his wines very, very much.
That's cool.
Laurentius Hoff is doing it, and it's kind of gaining momentum. And I think it takes a lot of discipline for the Germans, who like everything to be very orderly and tidy, to let their vineyards look a little bit wild. And yes, you control it. You mow it at certain times. You do certain things, but ultimately, there's probably a few hundred things we do like this that are just probably a little outside the box. And we've had the luxury so far of getting a crop every year. But this vineyard, it's not run for money. I probably don't really make very much money on it. We cropped, I think, in 2009 I got a 1/4 ton per acre.
Wow.
And then in 2010, in 2011 we got 1/2 ton per acre. But if you're tilting at windmills, you're doing something crazy that makes no sense. You might as well put yourself into it and just do it how you feel right. And if we were in a dream right now, what would we do? Well, I'd probably start talking with a little bit more confidence and look at the camera a little bit more. But this is the one thing I really want to do this way, that I don't want to limit myself. So
and it's really making a mark.
Yeah,
like nobody else in the world is making this wine, right? Like you're not imitating anybody, and as it gets better and better, it's just more of that.
Thank you.
It's just representation of place, representation of time, and little history of yourself, right? It's all tied into it.
And I appreciate you're doing it in this style because it's just something so outside the norm that completely works, right? Which with hundreds and hundreds of producers in the Willamette Valley at this point, the very same wine gets made by some of them, right? Like you taste some wines and it's like, wow, this tastes very similar to something I've tasted from another producer. This is not that. And saying that in a very good sense as well. Like this is something that's completely outside the norm, but is delicious and awesome. Like keep running with it. So.
And we were talking before when he got started. He got even some well-meaning advice of people that were concerned that he was deviating from kind of the standard accepted practices. Teutonic Wine Company came from wanting to make wines in the German style, right?
Yes.
And he got a lot of his winemaking coaching from Harold from Weingut Ackerman, who I've had a little video clip. We talked about their wines before, and so he was making Pinot Noir with German. Is consulting too strong of a word, maybe? But he was kind of like consulting. Yeah, he was consulting with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely, these wines, I owe a lot of this to history and people. And Harold from Weingut Ackerman, his family, they've been so generous. We stay with them every year. We spend time in the vineyards and in the cellar. They've been here. And, terroir, I think, is not just about the wine, but the feeling you get, the people you meet, and the whole experience. And then also, of course, Ewald Mosler. I mean, this guy, I don't know whether
either one of us would probably be sitting here if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
Whether I should give him a hug or throw this wine in his face. I was running a restaurant and, very happy and content. I knew I liked wine from cold places, and he showed up one day with 14 wines. I bought every one, and I came home and told my dear, lovely wife, I said, we have to plant a vineyard, and we have to figure out a way to make wines that make other people feel the way Ewald's wines make me feel. And not only that, Ewald now is one of my super best friends. He's Uncle Ewald. he is part of my family, whether he likes it or not, so.
He's a
Thanks,
great guy.
Yeah, cheers.
I'll drink to that.
This is the 2010, not on the market right now, but expected to be released
Well, I
couple
guess,
months, or?
should I release it? I mean, tell me if it's ready or not,
Okay.
then I'll release it.
Wow. Huh. We'll give you our thoughts, but. Smells nice, more like kind of like young strawberries on the nose here. I think
Even like
getting away from the darker fruits.
Like a hint of cranberry.
Oh yeah, there you go. Man, your
Oh!
smells on point.
Cranberry, boom, that's what this wine had a ton of when it was young.
Oh.
Tons of cranberry in the OA.
Well, wow. Now there's a connection.
Almost
connection, yeah.
rhubarby, yeah, like,
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it smells. I mean, it smells nice, but it's very very dialed down, right? Like we turned the volume down a few notches, which is it's not saying it's close. It's just very very gentle on those.
A little bit of roses there too. I think it's a little tiny flow. I'm gonna go with, yeah, you're right. It is dialed down. There's a lot of complexity. The more I'm sniffing it, I'm getting more and more things. They're just not. None of them's like jumping out and punching me in the face. So like a little even. Boy, maybe you won't even like, but a little bit of molasses, right? Again, like this hint of darker richness. Not that it's a big, heavy wine, but
kind of a sweet licorice
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of. And I get also sort of, once again, going back to here, that sort of a little bit of mushroom and a little bit of forest floor.
Yeah, this thing is an acid bomb on the palate. In a good way. I'm not saying like
Thank
it's
you.
been bad, but it's man.
Oh, I think this wine is like, like drinking syrup compared to the one with the barbarians on it.
Oh, really?
You don't think so? That I could go get a bottle real quick, the battle wine.
We'll have
Side
to
by
try.
side.
Yeah, it would be interesting to try those side by side. But I just think that one is the acidity is gentler. The intensity is more in line with the fruit on that one. Personally, for myself, man, like there is more intensity of fruit on this one. But man, like the finish just pops. I mean, it is.
It's interesting,
It's
yeah.
odd.
But I mean, I see that. I kind of wonder, almost like, you know, to me, there's an acid, but because the malic acid was so high in this wine, when it went through ML, it produced a lot of that creaminess. So I kind of
That's where-
get the acid,
okay.
but then I get this really kind of creamy, velvety textural thing.
No, the texture
For the
on this one
malic.
is fantastic.
I'm glad you said that first, because I was trying to place that. I'm getting, like, in some ways, even more richness, and that's totally what it's coming from, like that.
But richness, but being light and reserved.
Definitely.
You know, and to me also, like, you know, you're engaging somebody, and sometimes people have, I'm not speaking about my wines, but in general, what I like about wines that are more quiet is when people whisper, you don't have to scream to say something intelligent, you can whisper something, and so, you know, here you're out with this date, this lovely girl and all this, and but she's whispering, but, you know, she's saying like all the right
Right?
shit, if I can say that.
You can say that.
Yeah,
If
so,
our friend David watches this, it's one of his favorite sayings to say about Burgundies that he loves is he wants a wine to whisper intensely.
It's true.
bingo, I love it so much.
So,
This
yeah.
sounds like I need to meet this fellow.
Yes, he's a cool guy. We've had him on the show actually, the last Bordeaux one. We got a few blooper clips from that one. Raging on Bordeaux.
Nice.
But I get the
Anyway,
strawberry
yeah.
flavors from the nose, like right in the beginning of the palate. And I'm glad he made that comment about richness too, because while I say there's definitely more of it, this is like in respect to his style. So again, this isn't a big heavy wine by any stretch of the imagination, but you're getting kind of like maybe cherry skins, and that suggestion of like the malolactic fermentation is definitely kind of like ringing true on the back end of the palate, but it lingers long, and as the finish sets in, I'm getting like some nice black pepper, which seems to be, you know, a little bit common from cooler sites, and I'm seeing more of it in 2010. And so, you know, now my like running theory is that maybe that's something that goes away as grapes get more and more ripe. So if you're on the earlier edge of the ripe spectrum, maybe that black pepper is something that shows a little more. I don't know. Do you get that spice at all, or is that?
Now that you say it, I can totally smell it and taste it, absolutely.
Based on drinking the 09 right before this, if I had this, I would drink it. I would hold it another year. Because I really like where the 09 is now.
Well, there goes our vacation plans.
For my palate. Sorry, yes. But I am one who prefers a lower acid wine, right? Like, or something that is a bit more gentle. This is, the acidity still has a very nice feel here, but man, it's just a lot. At least for my drinking thing. I mean, for my palate. So
You know, and it's interesting. I think, you know, there's like this old kind of cliche, like, oh, do you see blue the way I see red? Because
Right, no,
it's very interesting. Because, you know, to me, and maybe it's also because I'm just absolutely starving right now and I haven't eaten. Like, you could probably feed me this cork, but you know, it's like,
It's good.
but you know, I'm not, maybe it's just because all I drink are just wacky, crazy acid wines. I would almost be interested, like, you know, like maybe off camera to try this mix with something else, because maybe it's.
Sure.
But to me,
Absolutely.
this is like I'm just drinking this, and I think it's sort of velvety and creamy.
Yeah, I get it though, because Dan
And this has come
have
out-
this exact same problem regularly.
And this is fun. Like, people talk, like, right when we got started, like, there needs to be more conflict, because it'd be funny if you guys insulted each other on the show and things like that. And I'm like, well, neither one of us really have that in our character to do a lot of that. And we're in line, our palates are in line on a lot of things, but it's come out over time that I like more acidity than he does. And this is a perfect example, because, like, while he was saying this is a little more than he wants, this is about right on for me. Right at the very end, it gets really strong on the finish, but I'm still okay with that. It works well, and to me, I think it's ready. This is without any business knowledge, or without any knowledge of how these evolve on even a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. There's no, you know, this is totally as a non-professional opinion, but I like where it's at right now.
Right, and there's no conflict. I'm sorry, there's no conflict here. What I was just saying is, like, I think everybody has different perception, and what I was saying is, like, red, like, maybe your eyes are seeing red when I see blue. But
Absolutely.
We have no frame of
It's
reference.
just how you perceive
But
it.
this is an interesting frame of reference. And Olga, my wife, who also gets a lot of credit here, has been a huge part of this operation and made all sorts of good shit happen. And thank you, love, for putting up with me for all these hard years of winemaking and crawling for miles. And
It can't be easy.
but anyway, the thing is, train of thought just went into a ditch.
Yeah.
Oh, so sometimes I'll have a wine and I'll love it, and Olga says, "Oh my God, it's bitter." And then my mom drinks it, and she says it's bitter. I'm like, "What in the world are you talking about?" And there's certain things that some people can taste and other people
Totally.
can't, and it's so weird that we can never know, like, how things sound to each other or have a point of reference. But I think wine is one interesting substance that we can't actually see the juxtaposition between our reference points and how our perception works.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good point. And then, I guess going back to the wine is that if I drank this now, I wouldn't have a problem with the acidity, but I would age it. For me, I would be like, oh, I've had the 09 and that was drinking awesome right now. I'm going to sit on this wine a year.
Well, the consultants have spoken, and we will see this wine in a
Unprofessional
year.
opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I guess that's our 3 wines for the show.
Awesome vertical. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
That was
Thank
rad,
you.
yeah.
And this is all really small production stuff. So I'm going to put their contact information up. If you're friends with any retailers in Oregon, send them an email. They can get it for you. They can keep you up to date on when it's released. You can email these guys. Do you ship retail around the country?
We
yet?
don't, but there's
Okay.
a lot of awesome shops.
Yeah,
that
tons.
do. So just type us on the internet, and you'll find somebody to ship our wines.
Yeah, and you can email either of them directly, and they'll hook you up with somebody, and they'll know better than anybody when stuff's going to be released. So I encourage you to get in touch. They're doing some of the most unique stuff, really anywhere in the world right now. It's true, right? Like, you're in a unique
Easily
wine
more.
growing place. You know, you're following your dream. You're not, you're breaking the mold. It's really cool stuff, and I'm excited to know you guys and get to taste it too. So, great show, good times. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. We're gonna wrap it up with a question from Barnaby. What would you like to know from folks who watch this video?
Oh my God. What would I like to know from folks in Oregon?
And it doesn't even have to be about wine. You can ask
Yeah.
about race cars
Anything.
or mutton chops or anything.
Oh, you can cut out if it was like a long
Totally,
sentence.
yeah, I have to do that. all
I've
the
asked
time.
him about video games.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan started playing Diablo 3, and I've been trying to do Mass Effect 3, and we're like, what video games have you been playing? Just anything. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
is anybody interested? You said race cars.
Yes.
Is anybody interested in racing? I want to put together like a wine race league, and the plan is
I'm in.
we're gonna have the schwenker, the barbecue. I'm gonna chill, drink beer, and my lovely wife is gonna drive the car and do all the hard work. So I really want to put this together. So please get in touch with these guys, and I'll see you at the track.
Nice. Cheers.
See you guys next time.
Cheers. Thank you.